Now, I'm not much in the Shakespeare department, but I still don't think he deserves to be shot at by those monkeys down there.
Oh bliss, another hour-long episode from the Twilight Zone. You know what's worse than a dull story that stretched out too thin for an hour? A dull hour-long Twilight Zone story that's also a wacky comedy episode! Oh yeah, after the abysmally awful I Dream of Jeannie dud, the Twilight Zone hasn't learned its damn lesson and still tries its hand at goofy comedy stories.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
And it's a long, painful one. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Rod Serling sucks at comedy! The intentionally silly hijinks from the Twilight Zone are some of the worst, since the comedy is so cheesy or flat out groan-worthy, with this episode being one of the worst. Rod Serling was a gifted creator, but it goes without saying that his taste in humor was atrocious. This episode serves as a testament to it. In this train wreck, we follow a struggling screenwriter desperately trying to sell his talent to big-wig Hollywood execs, but sadly, he can't get his foot in the door. Our amateur screenwriter's hopeful goal is to at last sell his imagination so folks know his name. Oh, let's simply call our protagonist Neil Breen. Neil Breen sucks at writing stories, and nobody will greenlight his crap. So naturally, Neil Breen turns to black magic to find the solution to his problems. I mean no exaggeration when I say that most of this episode's problems stem from this guy. Our main character is meant to be a lovable doofus who just wants to achieve his dream of becoming a terrific artist, but he is obnoxiously irritating. Neil Breen is designed to be similar to SpongeBob SquarePants, a wide-eyed optimist who just wants a success, but he comes across worse than modern Brian Griffin, acting as an unfunny dipwad who you just want to strangle due to his cringy antics. Neil Breen constantly makes stupid faces at the camera, says unfunny one-liners, and acts so over the top that it makes one wince rather than laugh. Not helping matters is that there are thousands of wacky sound effects and silly music playing all throughout the tale, making it more awkward and annoying than fun. The episode's comedic style is so juvenile, and not in a good way. It's so childish, it makes Sesame Street look rated R. I laughed at like 2 jokes in this episode, and neither of them came from our main character. He might be the worst hero we've ever followed on this show, and this show had Nazis. There's also painfully unfunny side characters in this as well, such as the snarky secretary, Neil Breen's cynical business agent, the classic uptight Hollywood execs, a kooky old lady, and even a wisecracking sassy little girl with an outrageous New Yorker accent and jive slang, yo. They're all equally horrendous, but where does the Twilight Zone magic come into play? Well, after getting rejected by his agent for the 100th millionth time, Neil Breen turns to dark magic where he summons William Shakespeare to help him draft the perfect story and finally make him famous.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-chingery. Money, oh money, how I love thee.
I'll admit, this premise has so much potential for great comedy. A modern-day screenwriter and William Shakespeare team up and become roomies trying to sell art together. There are endless possibilities behind this idea, and I dare say it could work.
How do they fuck it up?
Glad you asked, critic. Well, they do nothing with this ingenious concept other than play out every predictable cliche and lame-ass joke you could think. Knowing that nobody will ever believe Shakespeare rose from the dead, Neil Breen takes all the credit once he at last sells a script to his Hollywood agents and whores out faster than Shil Wheaton. Now, you would think this will be the plot. Neil Breen and Shakespeare are going to butt heads over his dick behavior, and our hero will learn a lesson in humility by the end, right? Wrong! William Shakespeare is not treated as a character whatsoever in this story. He's kind of sidelined and ends up being a plot device. I do like how the actor playing William is trying and at least having fun, but Shakespeare is barely active in this, other than writing the scripts. Heck, he doesn't even have any reaction to the fact that he's traveled in time and lives in the future now. He has no reaction. Ha! The show saves him for the final act, yet he doesn't do much except banter with our unfunny hero and say stupid quips. Despite literally being a fish out of water, William Shakespeare acts as the straight man to everyone else's zaniness, which just isn't funny. Him simply going with the flow until the end makes him boring. The episode really drags out Neil Breen's rise to the top and his hijinks with Shakespeare until the actual story begins in the final act. We're supposed to laugh at our protagonist's goofy antics, but this guy isn't funny or likable. He's just an ass. I don't feel connected with him when he angsts about his struggles as a writer, because he totally 180s by turning to the camera to make unfunny gags and silly faces going, "Look, I'm so stupid!" What's worse is that him plagiarizing his alleged friend Shakespeare's work isn't ever portrayed in a negative light. This guy taking somebody else's work is never played as a bad thing, and the plot never once calls him out on it, making him bile. I'm not laughing at this dick's harebrained schemes, I just want to shoot him in the face. Tired of losing credit for his hard work to this jackass, William demands he at least watch the rehearsals for his projects, where he bursts into the practice set and is horrified by what he sees. Basically, Neil Breen informs Will that the execs added a few changes to his work. The cartoony businessmen altered a few characters, picked up hot celebrities for certain roles, modernized it for the kids, inserted blatant product placements into the setting, and cut out some ideas since they feared audiences would be offended or confused by the retro content. Yes sirree Bob, the entire punchline of this whole story was a jab at how stupid Hollywood is, and that it's wrong when studios interfere with art. Wow, I'm so thrilled we waited through 40 minutes of unfunny filler from a soulless sitcom to make an easy take that on soulless corporations. Well worth the wait. Though I should tell you that there was a major highlight in this. One of the actors who gets into an argument with Shakespeare is seriously a young Burt Reynolds acting as a mocking parody of Marlon Brando. Yes, for reals, the Twilight Zone has Burt Reynolds riffing Marlon Brando and getting into petty bitch fits with Shakespeare, which even escalates to the legendary writer punching Marlon Brando out. In fairness, Mr. Reynolds does a darn good job at it.
What's the question? Exactly. What is the question? I mean, like any slob can walk through a door. I mean, like I do it every day. But, well, now, maybe I shouldn't walk through the door at that moment. So I gotta ask myself, would I walk through that door? It's on the basis of that answer that I find my motivation. So the question is, what's my motivation?
Wow, you guys really do look a lot like Marlon Brando.
Thank you.
Though, if you have no clue who Marlon Brando is, then this joke will likely fly over your head. especially for modern audiences. I do like Burt Reynolds hamming it up to the point where I wish he was the main character instead, but sadly he's not. And this one legit saving grace wasn't strong enough to save the whole episode. Fed up with this world, Will walks out to go back to being dead, I guess, but not before telling off Neil Breen for his pathetic behavior. William Shakespeare essentially gives us the big lesson, that you shouldn't censor or change the work of an artist because it's wrong. A creator should be allowed to form their own identity, express their worldview, and tell their story, not stoop to the lowest common denominator by selling out your life's vision for petty gain. After dropping that bomb, William fades out. That's honestly a pretty great message to send people, especially after throwing shade at the shallow state of the film industry. I almost thought it made this episode decent. Until we get to the end, where Neil Breen decides to summon even more historical figures with his satanic magic, assembling a whole new team of crack writers. In the end, Neil is rehired back to the office to sell new movies, and adds his new friends to the project, revealing that Neil Breen will become America's best filmmaker, working alongside George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, Daniel Boone, Teddy Roosevelt, Pocahontas, Ben Franklin, and the greatest American role model of all, General Robert E. Lee. These heroes will help appease American audiences everywhere, since, as we all know, modern Hollywood is all about positive representation for the greatness of the Confederacy. What the is this? This Twilight Zone tale is garbage. Some of the stankiest, rankest glurge I have ever seen from this classic. It's almost worse than Jordan Peele's diarrhea piss. And you know what's worse? Rod Serling had complete control over this episode. He wrote, produced, and backed all of this. He sincerely thought this was great comedy. The Bard is paws down one of the worst episodes the show ever crapped out. Not only is the valid moral lost in favor of a stupid joke, but our hero failed to learn anything and is just going to quadruple down on his bad behavior. Neil Breen is still a crappy artist, but now he's going to give credit to his ghostwriters while using them to make money for himself, and is still an unlikable douche at the end. He goes through zero change and is just as irritating as he was minute 1. This episode is so terrible that even the surreal setup of Shakespeare teaming up with a newbie writer and Burt Reynolds roasting Marlon Brando couldn't salvage it. The jokes are pure cringe. The cartoon sound effects are painful. The trombone music in this background annoys you to no end. Our main protagonist is not somebody you want to root for, let alone make you laugh. The characters are dumb. The plot's cliched. The moral is so lost. The magic sucks. The twist ending is lame. And the episode as a whole does not demand an hour of your life. How did this series go from the perfection of A Game of Pool, Maple Street, and The Obsolete Man to this?
Scubba-dubba-doo, I love you. Put me on the stage, I'll be a rage. Scubba-dubba-doo, scubba-dubba-doo. Racky sack, I'm flush.
I grant this masterpiece the most deserving decayed skull ever. The only elements preventing it from dropping to 0 are a nice message to artists and Burt Reynolds, but even they could not make me say this episode was good or worth a second of your time. I don't recommend this adventure at all. It is doggy-doo. Saying Macbeth is no longer the sole dark omen of Shakespeare's legacy.
Show's over, Shakespeare. Is this the end of zombie Shakespeare?
The Twilight Zone.